Welcome back to Building the Others, the AI podcast where you have to have built something that other people actually use in the real world in order to be a guest expert on our show. So no hype, no vaporware. It has to be a real thing that is actually useful to people, which, believe it or not, it cuts out a lot of what you see online on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that. Today, we're very happy to welcome Chris Richardson to the show. And Chris, you have an incredibly full resume of so many different things: the Washington Post, NPR, ArcXP, Capital One. Now you're at the PMI. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the Project Management Institute and kind of what your function there is now and what you're trying to achieve?
For sure. Sounds good. Firstly, hello, everybody. My name is Christopher C.P. Richardson, but very long name, so I always just go by CP, or the guy who wears colorful hats and glasses you'll see on LinkedIn. It's the same exact thing. In a nutshell, I guess the TLDR. Currently at the Project Management Institute, I actually just recently joined about 7 weeks ago as the AI Insights and Engagement Lead. And when you think about the Project Management Institute, or PMI, it's a community-based organization, nonprofit. Right. So members and chapters from literally all over the world, almost over 800,000 members total. And in particular, what I do is I get to interact and engage with that community around project management and artificial intelligence and AI. So it's a lot of sharing what PMI strategy is when it comes to AI, or what we call PMI by AI. But then also what I get to do is to look at some of the really cool things that various chapters are doing, from training. Hey, here's the latest and greatest models and agents, actually, which is fun enough. I'm actually working on an agent workshop that I will be sharing that this upcoming PMI conference, PMI Agile 2026, that's in the National Harbor. So if you're there and attending, you'll actually get to see the demo of my how to build an agent that actually works and not just does whatever. So that's where it made it kind of what I do in a nutshell. Again, I'm working with the community. I get out there, I shake the hands. I love to shake the hands and kiss the babies. And that's the part, again, honestly, what I love, because that's what fuels me, because that keeps me sharp, and it allows me to continuously give back, which is, as we'll probably talk about later, that's been the theme of my entire professional career. So yeah, that's a little bit about me at the Project Management Institute.
Just to double down on that really
right.
quick, can you just reiterate what is the theme that overlaps over your entire career?
So for me, the theme has always been centered around giving back and trying to be assisting others, right? Whether it was my early time back in university, or my time at NPR. Again, I have a few nonprofits I've worked for. It's really kind of been centered around that, but the theme of my entire career has always been, how do I give somebody a leg up? Because somebody did that for me many moons ago. Somebody saw, like, hey, this person has a comp-sci degree. Why is he working on the telephones at Capital One? Because it was the 2009 financial crisis and you couldn't find a job. So I took whatever I could get, right? So I'm just like, but it's like, why does he have a comp-sci degree? He has all this experience and expertise. Let's give him a shot. If I could be a shot for somebody else, I mean, I've done my part. So it's the whole pay forward back mentality that I've carried out throughout my entire career.
And for listeners here, that really is the case. Like, you were a firefighter once upon a time too, right?
Yes. For 4 years in Chesterfield County, in Prince George County, not Prince George County, Maryland, which are great volunteer system that's there. I actually was a firefighter for 4 years, and I actually I was trying to leave Capital One at the time, the first go around, pre-machine learning time at Capital One, because for me, it was more of like, I wanted to do something where, like, I walked into work every day and I felt like I made a difference. I felt like I was improving either my community or my environment, or just trying to make somebody's day a little bit better. Because of course, when you dial 911, it's probably the worst possible day of your life, right?
Yeah.
Me just showing up and just say, it's okay, we got you, that's 50% of the battle. Then it's okay, what do I do once I've like calmed everybody down, and it's kind of go from there. So yeah, as you mentioned, like, that's what that it kind of continues with that theme, and I did it for 4 years. And then I realized that it's strenuous on your knees. And I was like, this is really cool. I still maintain all my certifications, my CPR, everything I still maintain, just in the off chance this AI thing goes bust, which I highly doubt it will, but in the off chance, you know what?
It's
I can get back
possible.
on the engine and go do the
Yeah.
thing. So
We're always going to need firefighters, right?
always gonna need firefighters for sure.
Well, okay, but this is like kind of an interesting area. The kind of through line between your background is in service of others, trying to help others. Obviously, with AI, that's kind of a through line with AI too, is how can it help humans be more productive, be more efficient, get more things done? But it is not humans doing that service. It is, predictive models doing that service in the case of generative AI. Like, how do you think about those two aspects and where kind of service of others goes in a world where AI is the centerpiece?
For sure. And I think it comes down to a lot of when the machines or your AI, they only do what you tell it to do. If you make a crappy model that's designed to scam people, guess what it's going to do? It's going to scam people because of the directions and instructions that you've given it. However, and especially in the age of AI, what we do, and this is examples that I've thought about as I've been like tinkering away, is that how do I make what we are building either at the project management institute or things I do like outside of that, how do I make it a little bit better to improve that experience for others, right? And so when we think about, and I'll give a super quick example, and that's from a public safety scenario where if you have a number of calls that are of like a very high in a particular area or of a certain category, right? But it's something that's a chronic disease versus like, heart attacks or something that's serious. How do I create a like some sort of like either network or I'm not going to get super fancy like a neural network. We don't want to do that. That's too fancy. But like, how do you create some sort of network or cohesion or connection to where it says, hey, let's create a community paramedic program for people who are in this for chronic illnesses in this area, and that the generative AI tool can then say, here are your top 1, 2, 3 areas and your categories that are chronic diseases, and then you actually dedicate time and resources and people to that. So then that way, those people get the assistance and help that they need, whether it's from your fire department, from your EMS service, or from another community service that's included, and then you leave the actual 911 calls to legitimate emergencies. It is not to say that you don't dial 911. However, if we are doing something to help prevent that extra 911 call because I couldn't get my diabetes medication or I need a trip for dialysis, right? Because these things happen. That just creates an overall less strain on the system, better end user experience or a better community experience, and people, again, to live healthier lives. It's just those types of things. Again, in service of others, you use these models to kind of tailor to where you think about like, hey, what's the end result ultimately at the end of the day?
But at scale, do you think like with the use of generative AI models, it will allow us to be like have more one-to-one kind of human-based connections, or does it remove a lot of that because it is replacing some of that stuff? And you can say, I have no idea. That's
no. Because I have thoughts and we have a time cap. That's the face.
Well, I think not to jump over here, but like I think that yes, like okay, let's picture public services that are available today, right? If you call 911 for your dialysis, I'm sure that firefighters are happy to help you, but maybe not exactly thrilled that they're getting pulled in that direction. And like I think of it as like a coordination problem. There are so many services that already exist today. There's so many people that need those services, but their paths to getting them are, I'm going to call 911, which is not an efficient use of it. And so like, if you think of it as a connecting agent between things that already exist and people who need them, then I think, the optimistic view is that it will create better connections there.
Oh, for sure, right? Like if we really want to get like super like kind of follow down the rabbit hole, right? There is always like the 911 approach. Then there's the non-emergency line approach, which came along to where you'll give that out proactively. It could then be, in a perfect world, you have like Chesterfield County has their own generative AI chatbot tool that says, hey, I need help. Could you connect me for somebody for a ride for my dialysis up and back? And then you just use that to coordinate. And then that way you say, hey, Mrs. Johnson or Mr. Smith, we see that you are having this appointment that's coming. And then this is a really cool thing about your agent is that your agent could then proactively start to call because it looks at your data, looks at your information, your dates, your schedules, and how long you go, and proactively calls you and lets you know, hey, this is what you have going on. Because when we think about your AI agents, or consider what an AI agent is, it perceives, it decides, and acts, right? The acting part, which is where it makes the difference. And so when you think about your agent on that front, and this, and again, tying back to the public safety scenario situation, it's acting on calling and letting those folks know, hey, this is what you have coming up, or hey, I need to establish new care. And never in that scenario that a human is involved, they're just kind of helping with the scheduling. So then when that provider comes out to pick them up, the interaction, the conversation, the discussion, like, hey, where are you from? Where have you been? How long have you lived in the area? You can focus really deeply on that. And then you can take away a lot of the logistics of, oh, I need your, because the part that's always, again, I know this is a really, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about it, but giving folks a behind the scenes look, one of the most awkward things when you're in the back of the medic unit is, okay, what's your social security number? What's your insurance information? Do you have insurance? These are questions that I'm asking all the time. And it's so awkward sometimes, especially when you're in a low income area. And it's like, I'm here to help. And they seem very hesitant to give you any of that information just because they know how much that bill is going to be. Taking some of that angst away to be able to say, here's a service that's provided to you at a significant discount proactively before you hit 911 and a non-emergency line means that my interaction with you doesn't have to have all the crazy awkwardness of whatever. I can just look at you human to human, making sure that I'm providing the best care for you en route to where you need to go.
Well, I love that. Let's make it real. Let's put it out in the world.
Yeah, if you know anybody out there, if y'all know some funding, hit up the Project Management Institute. Say, hey, CP had this really great idea. Put him in charge of this very particular project. He needs a bonus too. Thank you, appreciate it.
Let's talk about project management here, and obviously, project managers are people who make things real and shepherd a project through from inception to it exists there on my corner. And what is AI doing to that industry? Like, obviously, you were hired for a role to be an ambassador to this community, and I'm sure the community has lots of thoughts about what's happening.
So many.
And so, like, what are you hearing? What are they saying? And like, what's the response?
Oh, actually, just went through this late last night as I was looking at a few talks for a conference that's coming up. The number one theme is heavily around governance, compliance, things of nature. Reason being, oftentimes you find project managers are in that space and kind of like helping herd the cats, getting all the right stakeholders together, trying to figure out, okay, who's the right people we need to talk to? Did they go through the appropriate stage gates and things of that nature? So more often than not, project managers play in that space. And then when it comes to what the community is saying on that front, it's like, hey, I have these ideas, or I need to make my life a little bit better. And one of the things people love to call out when it comes to like, hey, I want to build an agent. 6 out of 10 times, I need something just to help me proactively manage my calendar. Send me like a chief of staff agent that decides, yep, this is important for you. No, this is not important. Auto decline and act on those things. It's from a project management standpoint, because there's two perspectives. There's a project and there's a project manager. From a project manager standpoint, it is help me, again, chief of staff, herd the cats, decline, things are important, give me insights. From a project standpoint, and this is where there's still a lot of like, I guess, white space, gray space, green space, whatever space color that you want to call it, if we're being honest. There's still a lot of how do I build generative AI tools, LLMs, RAGs, whatever scenario that you want to do to say, how can I use these tools to help me manage the project better, to navigate the triple constraints for cost, quality, and speed on that front. That's where there's still a lot of green space that's left to figure out what that looks like, because I think project managers, again, especially you always ask the question when a lot of these tools start coming out, it's more, how does it impact me? Once I figure that out, then it's like the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like self. And then you can start to worry about all the other things. Like once I figured out I'm squared away and I'm good on here, now how do I apply this to my project overall? And I think because we're still so early on, and this is the beautiful part about what Project Management Institute is doing, is that we're helping drive the shift that conversation from, okay, as a project manager, you're good. Now let's look at your project portfolio and things of that nature, because that's the whole reason why we came out with the brand new standard for artificial intelligence for projects and portfolios and programs. That's the whole point. It gives folks frameworks and principles to kind of help navigate how to effectively manage, not just at a personal level, but now actually at that program portfolio and project level. So yeah.
And is the governance thing, like if you're managing these projects and governance is is the problem that now people are so individually more capable that they kind of go rogue and like kind of blow up the process of like how things are supposed to be done, and just because like I'm just gonna go do it, man, and I'm not gonna follow this plan that you put out? Or
yeah, honestly, it's a lot of that, and I've been guilty of it myself. We'll probably talk about it later about something I built for separately, but we'll talk about my failures and lessons learned on that front. But I think honestly, it's a lot of that, right? Like it's just so easy to spin up and do stuff, right? It's like there's no like technical teams that I need. I may need some API tokens to kind of like hit a particular service, maybe some abilities to build an infrastructure or a stack, let's say AWS or Azure or something like that. But that's really it. The question then becomes, when we think about governance, right? It works great. New features come into play and you don't account for those new features, and there's no way of ingesting, there's no way of reassessing and looking at, does that new feature now inject bias into my model and how it decides, right? This is the same exact thing with when I spent my time at Capital One in 2018 in the Center for Machine Learning. It is at the models that we were working with. This is when big data and all the things, and people were like, oh my God, you had to have like Apache Spark and all these like basic like requirements for data engineering and everything. Again, a lot of my data engineers, y'all are like the best people ever, by the way. Just anybody tells you different, they're wrong. Especially now, data engineers are awesome. It is the models that we were working with on the fraud side, because again, catching bad guys, right? Really cool part. Again, ties to the theme of service of others. And that is, we worked with 34 different individual features that fed our model to decide whether or not something was fraud or not. When new transaction types comes into play, when new card expiration dates, every new feature needs to get weighed and scored and evaluated. And it just goes and kind of tying it back to your question earlier. When you build something, people are very quick to set it and forget it because, oh my God, it works and it's great and let's finally go live. And there's nothing to improve it. So when a new feature gets injected and there's bias, you don't catch it until somebody who's a customer downstream says, this is an issue, versus you being able to proactively say, oh yeah, this is something we need to account for on that front.
Yeah, I mean, we see that happen all the time when just like a new model comes out and all you're doing is switching out the model powering an agent, and it suddenly gives you totally different answers, which like if you're building stuff that your business relies on, you can't have that happening. And so the evals problem is a massive one.
Yeah, the conventional wisdom around governance is that you introduce it and it's going to introduce friction into the business and slow everything down. But I think in the world of AI, with enterprises in particular, good governance allows those enterprises to move way faster, because you're basically putting the things in place that you're like saying this has approval, and then now people can do it. There is, however, overdoing governance, and then it can be very like friction led and slow. But if you do it right, then I think you can really make the org move faster, not slower.
For sure. And Sachin, and exactly to your point, like when I was in the business risk office at Capital One, right? We always try to emphasize, when you think about risk and compliance and legal, everybody's like, oh Lord Jesus, here's the bad folks, right? They're gonna like stifle innovation. We want to be seen, truly be seen as partners. So the sooner you bring us along the ride for the journey, the easier it becomes to get your stuff out the door. Don't build everything in a silo, then just ask for the blessings from legal and compliance, because that's when those long reviews take place. leverage us, uses us partners. And I think that's the reason why project managers, especially today, they want to nail down governance, because when a project gets approved, especially for AI projects gets approved, they want to be able to bring those applicable parties into the conversation early. So we all know what's going on. We all have context, because with context, you can do so many amazing things to speed things up and deliver things faster. Just like with any model or agent thing that you build, if you don't give it context, and whoever coined the word phrase hallucinate needs to should have patented that, but it'll hallucinate significantly. But if you add that context and say, draw from these resources and this information, you're in a good space. So
so I think it's time for you to talk through what you made, because I'm very curious as someone who loves, a good bottle of wine myself. I know you have an autonomous.
I have a store just in case you want some.
You can plug it. You can plug it if you want, but like, what's the use case here?
Okay. So some context. My partner and I, we started a wine wholesaling and importing business, and the whole antithesis or beginning of it was I worked at the Washington Post. She worked for the Department of Homeland Security in cybersecurity. Way smarter than me, by the way. You should really be interviewing her versus me. Things happened. We both got laid off right around the same time, and we're like, we're getting tired, because she worked in public sector her entire career. And for me, I was like, hey, I worked a lot of cool things. What is another cool random feather in the hat I can add, right? So like, hey, we love wine. We love telling stories. And we want, again, in service of others, we want to take those small vineyards who don't have the infrastructure to sell, to market into the U.S. economy. Let's us be your conduit. And so that's how VNE importers, or Vin Noir explorers and importers, got started. Now, to the whole building part of it, because still to this day, we're a 2-person shop. We handle everything from compliance to legal to marketing. We do funny Instagram reels, but we also do sales. We also do cold outreach, which is the example I'm going to go with. And so for us, when we first got started, we were like, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, we're a 2-person shop. We got some time. How do we start to like build our brand, build our name? Because the marketer in me is like, okay, yep. How do you start to build like notoriety and legitimacy within the space where you have so many amazing big players that we're difficult to compete with, right? What's your market value? What's your market fit? And then what's your like value prop? Our value prop is that it's a 2-person shop. We both own it. We make every decision, and we can pick whatever you want to pick from. No rep that you really work with, unless you know a senior VP at Southern Tryon, is going to have that kind of decision-making authority. You talk to us, you ping us, we're the only 2. You let us know, and we actually have a ship that is getting delivered today, actually. That's a special order from a vineyard that this dude has been looking for 2 years. And he's like, if you can find these, I will buy an entire pallet. I was like, literally got on WhatsApp and pinged a vineyard like 2 days later. I was like, here you go. Done. Yeah. Anyways. All right. So for us, we were like, okay, how do we do outreach? And I got the crazy idea. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build an agent. Because I'm like, because I needed some experience, building agents at the time. But then also I was just like, we don't have time to reach out to places because we're trying to cover the entire state. So over 2 weeks, and it's also on my GitHub at github.com, cprichard92. I can share that. I'm sure somebody will share that in the show notes. You can take a look at it. Is that we actually created an outreach marketing agent. And what the agent does is that it will go to each vineyard, each store, retailer, restaurant, and we actually also have stacked ranking of like what's important, because we don't do big box retailers because we do not have the logistical capacities to do that. We rank those top places 1, 2, 3. We say, hey, here's our target regions that we want to hit in metropolitan areas, 1, 2, 3. Then we say, okay, agent, well, here's what we want you to do. We have our entire SKUs of 250 SKUs, which is still small compared to others. We have 250 SKUs of various wines. Go to each site, look up their site, look up their menu, scan the PDF, scan their site, try to find their ownership, ABC numbers, compliance, because that's important too. And then say, okay, now that you have all of this information, I want you to create a custom email for each restaurant, vendor, store, and act like we actually did our research. On top of that, take 1, 2, 3 of like gaps in their menu and compare it to our wine database. So if you are a restaurant and you don't have a capso, I got like 3 of them for you. Here's three capsos that we can offer from different regions, and here's the price points. And that agent will run through, give you recommendations and pricing, customize the message, customize who's sent to, and even better if I can find like the actual owners. And then I'll send it to the owner's email and say, hey, here's who we are new. Here is some content that's about us, because we actually had in pieces written us in Food and Wine magazine, US wine ratings. So we're legit. We're not just any randos. So we're actually legit, right? And it shows that I've done research. And so give us a call, give us a holler. We can do sales. We can do sales for you. I give them our order form. They actually click a button and order and ship, and it automatically sends to us. But also we offer wine tastings and education for their staff. And then just say, hey, love to chat, even if it's just to connect us with somebody else. That agent runs every day, 8 a.m., gives us a report back, who we reached out to. And this is the part that I love, is that for our sales reps, by sales reps, me and Shania, my wife.
Yeah.
It tells you, this is what the agent said to this person. Who's the person that you need to talk to, and their bar manager, and here is what the wines they recommended. So every time, all I need to do when I walk into that place is just like, oh, we reached out about this, this, and this, and we were looking for Jeremy, or we were looking for Doyle, right?
Yeah.
And hey, because they're the decision maker. Great, fantastic, awesome, cool. And if we don't walk in, it's a cold outreach, but it's not really cold to us, because it shows that we've done our research and our insights. And so there's that. That's in a nutshell. I'm sure there's tons of questions, and there's a whole bunch of extra stuff. That's because I have a bunch of like what questions do you have? Because I'll nerd out on this real quick.
I love that it's detecting the gaps in like what a restaurant or store is offering in terms of like their wine menu. And then it's like, hey, here's the SKUs that we have to like fill out those gaps. How much, in some level, this is like a prescriptive, you are missing this wine and you really should be selling this kind of wine. How much of your personal taste is like, I just really love Cabernet Sauvignon and I want like this, they need to be selling that or whatever. Like how much of that is at play?
You know, it's funny enough, because though we don't explicitly give instructions in the model to do that, our database and our SKUs that we selected reflect that. So my wife loves Italian reds. Why do I have so many Italian reds in our menu? I will not understand when I get just such a small portfolio of, because I'm a French girly. So like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, whites, reds, like all of that. It's me, right? And it literally is like a closet. Like I had this much space, and then she has the entire rest of the portfolio. But though, again, as I mentioned, though we don't put it in our model, other places have that like, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, bias. And this kind of brings it all back to governance. Though your model may not necessarily have bias built into it, what about the ecosystem around it? Does it have bias that's built into it also? And these are things that you have to keep in mind, especially as a project manager or anybody who's working in that space. These are things that you have to consider, because though your model may not have it and it tries to use its best of intentions, if your staff or the people who are in your legal space have never worked in like the beverage industry or service industry, and they always did like a real estate law, you're probably going to miss some things in that space, right? Just from a compliance perspective, right? And so those are things, some things to keep in mind on that front.
Well, the models are also trained on the internet, and the internet has watched sideways and has a perspective on Merlot that is, perhaps not.
It's trash. Again, will I trigger Merlot? Of course, will. Is it going to be my first one? Absolutely not. Apparently, the fun trends are Alsace, and I know we were supposed to talk about building stuff, and I know and talk about all the techie things. But however, Alsace is a fun grade, and Shibli because people love putting it on a TikTok and Instagram because it makes for great Instagram reel, because a lot of people have never heard of what is a Shipley, and it just sounds really fun. It sounds really fun to say just in general. But like, for example, for me, there's a very fun and unique one that's actually called a Zekwelt that I had never heard of. And I was just like, what is this? And it's a German natural grape, because everybody like knows like a Riesling and Ebling and Sylvaner. And I'm just like, what is this Zekwelt? And I'm just like, well, let's try it. And I swear it's it's not my first. How about this? It's been my top 5 red grapes, and it's not top 3. So I'll take your pick on one number, but it's not top 3. But yeah, but it's like to a point, like it's the ecosystem that exists around it, and especially with the as you mentioned, with the internet has its own perspective too. Those things are like important to keep in mind. Now, one of the things that kind of like to take another peek behind the scenes, right? Because of where we live at. So we live in the Outer Banks in Kildover Hills, North Carolina. So the Outer Banks coastal line. So it's a very boom and bust in the wintertime. We don't do a lot of sales just because not a lot of people are here visiting in the wintertime. But one of the big things that we try to account for is natural disasters, hurricanes, and things of that nature. So in our model also, it accounts for significant natural disaster events, because the last thing I'm pretty sure a business is going to want to do is that you had a fire at your business and then I send you an email saying, hey, do you want to buy some wine from us? It's probably not a good look. But so we take those things to account also. And again, as I talk about biases, and then this is a bias in a good way, my ecosystem means that, hey, I need to keep in mind like natural disasters and stuff like that. Versus other people, they must be, hey, this place may burn down, but it's a chain, so they got like 12 other locations. They may not have that issue, right? But for us, we try to be sensitive and try to be cognizant of those things. And then also, what are good days to send emails? Your admin days for your owners are typically Monday and Tuesday. Don't send an email, don't call, don't show up, because I got a really nice steakhouse out here that told me this. It's like, never show up to my place at 4:00 trying to sell me something I'm about to open. He told me straight up, and he's like, go away. And I was like, you know what? Fair. But on that Monday, that Tuesday at like 11 a.m., when you're there doing like, everything else, those are times to show up. So we try to take into account those things also within the
model. Well, now I just want to buy a bottle of wine.
Yeah, exactly.
For myself.
I got all these Brex now. I got to go out and get some.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we wanted to thank you for joining and talking us through this. There's a lot of like actionable advice for builders out there. And I think that, you're at a very interesting intersection of, being the ambassador to a community that is responsible for making things happen, and a massive one, 800,000 members worldwide. And so, project managers are obviously so deep in the nuts and bolts of making things happen in this world. And AI is like a massive system shock to all of that. So I think we could invite you back in a year, and you're probably like, okay, forget everything I just told you.
Yeah, exactly. Like governance, governance, don't worry about it. There are governance agents out there. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just put it in a notebook, and what's your rules and regulations. As long as you don't break those, you're fine. It's okay. You're good.
If you had one last, in a sentence piece of advice for builders out there, what would you say?
I can't say that word. That's because that's about.
There's no content filters here. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. Oh, there's no content filters.
No.
As my. I don't even know what generation it is. Gen Z or Gen Alphas. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a late millennial thing. I'm not sure. But F it, we ball when it comes to like trying things is like just roll the dice. If you got an idea, try it, because once you start typing it, and then because it'll give you something back, and then of course if you're working with a tool, that you've been working with for a while. So like for me, it's Codex, right? And then it'll learn your habits. Put something in there. Just write it. I have a crazy idea. I literally have a prompt, a standard prompt that says, "Hey, just add this to my crazy idea list."
Yeah.
Add this to my crazy idea list. And then it was like, cool, noted. And then when eventually I was like, hey, replay all those crazy ideas. Don't say the other word. It was like, you know what? Yeah, that was probably bad. But honestly, again, the advice is just do it, man. Like again, if this was literally, I've had a swoosh somewhere around, if I could do the little swoosh thing, I would just say, just do it. But it says PMI, which is just as cool as the Nike swoosh, just as cool.
Well, I fully support that. And just one more time, thank you for joining. This is a pleasure.
This was awesome.
I honestly, I just appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I get to talk about V&E, or anytime I get to talk about Project Management Institute, or anytime I get to talk about firefighter and public safety. I mean, it's honestly, it's just win-win. Exactly. Triple W's. So yeah, I'm trying to think of something cool to say. But anyways, but yeah, no, this has been an absolute pleasure. And again, like I mentioned, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I will say just a quick shout out if folks are interested in stuff that we are doing over at Project Management Institute. When it comes to AI, of course, go to projectmanagement.org. Come check us out. You can find me on LinkedIn. Again, Christopher Richardson, CP Richardson, or the guy who wears colorful hats and black glasses. That's a moniker. So yeah.
Instantly recognizable. Thank you, Chris.
All right, man. All right, y'all. Cheers.
Thanks.